Coming home. Qowl. A voice. 9. Above and beyond. Making persuasive arguments. There were so many prophetic revelations to consider and explore, we are overwhelmed with possibilities. And yet, we have decided to follow our original plan, which was to systematically examine the first 40 mizmor, departing from this path only when necessary to fully appreciate Dawd's message to his people. Thus far, by doing so, we have found the central cord of Yahuwah's testimony, a person like none other, Dawd. Following in Moses' footsteps, he became Yahuwah's beloved son, God's anointed Messiah, the central branch off of the tree of lives as well as the best the tree of the knowledge of good and evil has to offer. He became Yah's chosen shepherd and king. More than any of this, he is the Zeroah, protective ram and sacrificial lamb. It is Dawd's lyrics which sing their way into Yahuwah's heart and should pierce the hearts of his people. Dawd, more than anyone, revealed the most effective way to observe and live the Torah guidance Moses inscribed. He, as the Lamb, scribed the lone eyewitness account of his fulfillment of Pesach Passover, in addition to matzah unyeasted bread and bikurim firstborn children. And he will be accompanying God upon his return, fighting as he always has for his people on Yom Kippurim, and then shepherding them into pastures flowing with living waters during Sukkah. In the 6th Mizmor song, we find Dawd longing for this new beginning, for the Sheminith, 8th octave, which sings to us about the 8th day of shelters. He has completed the first phase of the mission Yahuwah had envisioned for him, and he was ready to move on. And since we have all felt this way from time to time, it's reassuring to hear Dawd David responding similarly. It reminds us not just of his inspiration, but of his humanity. To the enduring leader, Lahanatsak, to approach and on behalf of the everlasting conductor and majestic director who endeavors to lead and is preeminent and distinguished forever, Natsak is actually a verb and, thus, actionable in the text as modified by the piel participle in the masculine singular, which means that those who listen to the song inspired by the eternal conductor will be influenced by these lyrics, accompanied by stringed instruments, ba nagina, performed with a harp. Or lyre, above and beyond, al, upon and over, the 8th octave, Sheminith, a scale for eternity, for heaven and beyond, from Shamini and Shemaim, 8th, infinite time, and the spiritual realm. A Mizmor song of Dawd the beloved, Mizmor la Dawd. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 6 dedication. This is one of only 3 times that Sheminith 8 appears in the text, each in reference to the instrumentation for a song. Since it is clearly related to Shamini 8, scholars typically consider Sheminith to be the 8th octave. In fact, the English word, octave, is based upon the Latin word for 8, octo. The issue with limiting it to this singular expression is that a harp can only play 6½ octaves, not 8, and its range exceeds other stringed instruments. Further, our most accomplished singers only have a 4-octave range, with the 8th octave residing at the upward limit of what most people can hear. However, when we consider the scale of 8 in harmony with Yahuwah's nomenclature, we find several thought-provoking ideas. The 8th day of Sukkah is an ode to eternal life with God in heaven. In this regard, the word for 8, Shamini, is remarkably similar to the Hebrew word for heaven Shemaim. And third, there are 7 notes in an octave, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, audibly affirming Yahuwah's plan, one which reverberates throughout time. Therefore, I suspect that Dawd is dedicating this song to Yahuwah, in recognition of his desire to spend his eternity in his Father's company in heaven. He realizes that God is not pleased with the conduct of men on earth, and that conditions will be far better in the next life. The sentiment expressed in the opening statement of Dawd's song is as central to our understanding as it is universally ignored. The purpose of the Berith covenant and of the Torah guidance is Yakak, persuasively demonstrated and proven through Dawd. He is the antidote to rabbinic Judaism and Pauline Christianity. He demonstrates that the Torah, rather than condemning, perfects the imperfect so that we can become beloved sons and daughters of Yah. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our shalom, restoration, you consistently prove your case through me with persuasive arguments which vindicate me and acquit through me, Yada Yahowah any, you use evidence and reason, engaging in rational dialogue with me, making decisions and resolving disputes through me, demonstrating that you and I are right, Hyphal imperfect Joseph, Yah is. Continually enabling Dawd to engage in the process of rational discourse within the parameters of free will, thereby eliminating everything displeasing and disagreeable, al-ba, devoid of antagonistic implications or frustrations, without resentment or lingering animosity, from anaf, being displeased. Your instructions enable me to be correct, Yada Yahowah any, your willingness to improve me, to teach, to guide, and train me, even provide discipline for me, make me stronger, strengthening me, peel imperfect Joseph, Dawd continually benefits from Yah's guidance under the auspices of free will, and, you are never overly protective or antagonistic, al-ba kima Ada. You are not displeased nor all emotionally worked up, neither toxic nor venomous, doing so without indignation. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 6 verse 1. The realization that Yahuwah helps us become right with him so that he can vindicate us serves as a rebuke of religion. And this affirmation is irrefutably and undeniably established through David's life and lyrics. He is the antidote for the false perceptions contained in the Talmud and New Testament. By closely examining and carefully considering the Torah, and by listening to the revelations Yahuwah conveyed to the prophet Shamuel, Dawd came to know and trust Yahuwah. A highly imperfect man was completely vindicated, becoming Yahuwah's beloved son and our Savior. This is the realization we have been lauding because it is so obvious. This is Dawd personalizing what we have read in the 19th Mizmor. In it, Dawd wrote the following. On behalf of the Eternal and Glorious One, a Mizmor Psalm of Dawd, the heavens quantify the unit of measure, exactly and accurately of the manifestation of power, glorious presence, and overall significance of God. Its expansion and expanse make his conspicuous handiwork known. Mizmor 19:1. Day unto day pours out a proliferation of answers, words which explain. Night unto night reveals knowledge which leads to understanding. Mizmor 19:2. Nothing exists and everything is senseless, without the word, without these answers and promises. Nothing matters or survives when and where the spoken and written message of the voice which calls out is corrupted or negated, when it becomes nameless and is no longer heard, regarded, or understood. Mizmor 19:3. This serves as a brilliant introduction to this profoundly important conclusion. YAHOWAH's Torah teaching and guidance is complete and perfect, restoring and transforming the soul. YAHOWAH's testimony is trustworthy and reliable, making understanding simple for the open-minded. Mizmor 19:7. YAHOWAH's directions are correct, promoting a right attitude while facilitating good judgment. YAHOWAH's terms and conditions of his covenant are purifying, illuminating the proper perspective. Mizmor 19:8. Revering and respecting YAHOWAH purifies and perfects forever. YAHOWAH's just means to resolve disputes is reliable and vindicating. Mizmor/Psalm 19:1-3-7-9. As we have just noted, the personal application of this realization is then expressed in Mizmor Psalm 6 verse 1. To the enduring leader, Lahanatsak, accompanied by stringed instruments, Ba Nagina, above and beyond, Al, the 8th octave, Shamanith. A song of Daud the beloved, Mizmor la Daud. YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, you consistently prove your case through me with persuasive arguments which vindicate me and acquit through me, Yada Yahowah any, thereby eliminating everything frustrating, displeasing, and disagreeable, Al Ba Af. Your instructions enable me to be correct and to teach about vindication, Yada Yasar any, and, Wah, you are never overly protective or antagonistic, Al Ba Kima Ada. Mizmor 6:1. In both secular and sectarian circles today, the God of the Bible, especially the one portrayed in what they errantly refer to as the Old Testament, is considered hostile and wrathful, angry and resentful. And yet, that is not how Daud perceived him, and no one knew him better. In this statement, yet another pervasive myth is obliterated. Based upon what we have learned from the inspired lyrics scribed by YAHOWAH's chosen shepherd, anointed Messiah, and beloved Son, nothing is more important than being correct with regard to YAHOWAH's testimony, especially his Torah, Mikra, and Berith. It is YAHOWAH's instructions which make the kind of relationship and outcome Daud enjoyed possible. The guidance he followed and the directions he learned are all for our benefit. And since his assessments and insights are readily available, and recognizing that it's an open book test, we have been given every opportunity to follow in his footsteps. Daud, through a lifetime of personal experience, realized that YAHOWAH, Chanan, in the Qowl imperative, wants to be genuinely compassionate and kind, lenient and merciful, toward us. And even though no one has ever held as high a status with YAHOWAH as Daud, his beloved son, he recognized his relative position and thus sought his father's intervention to Rapha, to promote him to a more preferable state. You want to be kind to me, choosing to show compassion, mercy, and favoritism through me, Chanan any, of your own volition you are generous toward me, Qowl imperative, be genuinely lenient and beneficial by choice, YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, an accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Haya, existence and our Shalom, reconciliation. For I am incapable of accomplishing this on my own, KY Umul any, I am too frail and lacking to prevail alone. You have chosen to promote healing and restoration through me, Rapha any, you want me to be acceptable to promote recovery, Qowl imperative, YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our Shalom, restoration, because, KY, my essential essence, Etzem any, my body and bones and my very substance, my skeleton and human nature, is anxious, eager to hasten the terrifying process, Bahal, is looking to hurry things up, expediting an immediate response because I'm a bit uneasy and afraid, Nifel perfect, for this momentary period of time, Daud's essential nature passively receives the means to hasten the agony. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 6 verse 2. Looking at these words superficially, we might assume that once we are enriched and empowered, life with YAHOWAH in heaven will be vastly superior to our time in the here and now, especially since we are surrounded by all manner of individual and institutionalized perversions of Yah's message. Should this be the intent, Daud was ready to move on. While I'm not fit to wear Daud's sandals, and while I've dealt with far less than he endured and am likely younger than he was when he scribed these words, I no longer feel this way. I want to stay engaged and helpful for as long as possible, all in the expectation that one more soul, maybe even thousands of souls, may choose to know and accept YAHOWAH through these translations of his testimony. Based upon what we have learned and considering Daud's assessment in the first line of this song, there is the likelihood that our Messiah was eager to get on with the business of our salvation. He was willing and ready to serve as the Pesach, I'll, even though he was cognizant of the agony he would endure. His personal contribution to the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, which made Shabuah and Towrah possible, and leading to Kippurim and Sukkah would become the defining moments in his lives. While it is interesting to ponder the reason Daud scribed this next lyric, since he was cast in the starring role, he knew what was going to occur and when. His declarative statement was, thereby, rendered to encourage us to calculate the timing from all of the clues we have been given. In so doing, we have surmised that Daud would return prior to Chag Matzah in year 6000 Yah and then on Yom Kippurim in 6000 Yah, the 2nd of October, 2033 at sunset in Yerushalayim. Bereft of Haush's timeline, and without the prophetic revelations in Yashaya, Yirmiah, Zechariah, and Malachi, all of which would be written hundreds of years later, Daud would not have held a prophetic text which delineates when he would be returning to fulfill the Moedim. But we do, and this knowledge is essential for us today. However, since YAHOWAH's timeline is very clearly presented in the opening books of the Torah, someone as brilliant as Daud would have figured it out. Further, he would have recognized that he was living in the exact center of Yahowah's place and time and that he would return in years 40,006,000 one to an anguishing experience, and one to herald a celebratory event. As we begin, as Dowd has explained, his participation in the most momentous dates in our unfolding relationship with God would be through the redeployment of his consciousness rather than his body. In addition, my soul, Nipesh Eni, my consciousness, that part of me that animates life and enables me to observe my environment and respond, my inner person, personality, attitude, and aptitude, along with selected memories which are the aspects of my nature that will accompany me into eternity, is enormously eager and anxious about the terrifying agony, Mio di Bahal, is in a tremendous hurry, wanting to greatly hasten that which is anguishing and alarming. So, then, Yada Yahowah, an accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Haya, existence in our Shalom, reconciliation, will commence the restoring witness, Ada ad Madi. Meanwhile, in consideration of this, the duration of time for the eternal testimony will show the overlapping dates and extended period. Mizmor 6:3. Yahowah, you and I both want you to return, Chalaz Nipesh Eni, you have decided and I concur that your desire is to restore, Peel imperative pedagogic hecohortative, it is my overwhelming desire and your will to dramatically come back. It is my desire and your decision to deliver salvation with my soul, Shalatz Nipesh Eni, you have chosen to support my choice to have you do what is required to rescue and withdraw with my consciousness, Peel imperative cohortative pedagogic he second person masculine singular, an expression of volition in first and second person whereby Yah and Dowd agree to save through his soul. You want to deliver me, liberating, rescuing, and saving through me, Yasha Eni, you have decided to be victorious with me, providing for the common good by delivering salvation through me, hyphal imperative second person masculine singular, because of the witness this provides to, Loman, as a result of and in response to the testimony it provides regarding, from Anna, to answer, respond, and testify to, your enduring love, unfailing kindness, tremendous generosity, and loyal devotion. Chisit Ada. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 6 verse 4. We have returned to the heart of the matter, to the central chord among the 8 octaves. Yahowah wants to save us, to take us away from all forms of human opposition and subjugation, because he loves us. And the method father and son have jointly agreed to pursue to accomplish this great act of compassion is by deploying Dowd's Nipesh soul throughout the Micro-EY invitations to be called out and meet. As a result of the impending agony associated with fulfilling Chag Matzah, Dowd is apprehensive and, yet, committed. He simply wants to get past Matzah so that he can bask in Yahowah's love throughout the rest of the mode and forevermore. Dowd's soul is the chosen implement of God's compassion, the means he will use to save us from ourselves. This is Yahowah's restoring witness. It is the path father and son have paved for us to come home. It is only after the first 3 mode eternal and restoring witnesses to the appointed meetings have been successfully fulfilled, giving rise to the benefits of the covenant, that we can commence heralding the Shabuah and Teruah harvests and Yahowah's return on Kippurim such that Yisrael is ready to be reconciled through the sacrifice of the red heifer. So, all things in their due time. With each Mikra fulfilled by Dowd's Nipesh, we witness Yahowah's enduring love for his son and his people. It is the ultimate collaboration. This next stanza of Dowd's lament is heartbreaking and yet undeniably true. Whether one sees Judaism or Christianity as the plague of death, even Islam, or all three, in each there is, ein Zikr, no mention or remembrance, of Yahowah, none. The very religions which claim that these psalms were inspired by their God have no concept whatsoever of who God is, what he said, or where or why he disclosed these revelations, not even what he is offering and expects in return. For indeed, because by contrast, there is no, ein, no longer existing, in the void of nothingness it is all for naught, remembrance or mention of you, Zikr, Ada, there is no son, no children, and no recollection nor appreciation of you, in the plague of death, Ba with the pandemic disease that causes entire populations to die, in perishing and being dispatched on a massive scale. In Sheol and with Shayol, Ba Sheol, in the place of questioning, the grave where the dead reside or with Shayol, the failed king and false prophet, who, how, when, why, and whom, will come to know you, expressing their appreciation for you, Yada Ada, will recognize and acknowledge you, choosing to thank you, continuously making public announcements and declarations regarding their familiarity with your eternal attributes, from Yad, the hand, or eye, and Yada, no end. Understand, recognize and acknowledge, hyphal imperfect jussive. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 6 verse 5. It is the greatest irony of our time, perhaps of all human history. With almost every country, culture, and civilization founded, influenced, and or controlled by religion, all of which claim to speak for God, there isn't one that actually knows him or that leads souls toward him. The litmus test for the credibility of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and even Mormonism is ignorance of Yahowah's name, the cause of which was removing it from his word and replacing it with the Lord 7,000 times. Had that not been done by religious leaders, no one would have believed that the Lord, Jesus Christ, or Allah was God. Through this lone diabolical act, these religions became the plague of death. Because of Shayol, the New Testament's Paul, Yahowah became irrelevant, his Torah teaching was abolished, Jews were antagonized, and Sheol gained countless inhabitants. One soul can make an enormous impact on the world, toward life, as was the case with Dowd, or death, as was the consequence of Shayol. Through Dowd, we come to appreciate Yah and are saved, and as a result of Paul, Yah has been completely disregarded and the faithful die. There are one of two fates awaiting the religious. Those who fathered and promoted it, controlling people through it, will spend an eternity in Sheol hell. Those who were played for fools will simply die, their souls ceasing to exist. For them, their life will be for naught. I have done my part, expending the time and energy, Yaga, I have been productive to the point of becoming weary for the moment, having labored extensively, striving to fulfill my job to the extent of my capability, Qowl perfect, to the point of exhaustion over enduring physical and then emotional pain, anacha any, such that I sigh, expressing my exasperation of the agony of subsequent disapproval. Within the all-encompassing darkness, Qowl Layla, in the total deprivation of light and complete obscurity of night, I swim, Sacha, I move through the water, Hyphal imperfect, within my bed of twisted injustice, Mida any, my stretcher and bier used to carry the sick and dying which is incorrect, warped, and invalid, with my weeping and tears, Daima any. My place of repose, Iresh any, is a place of testing, a trial focused on achieving the proper response, Masa, of examination and hardship. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 6 verse 6. There have been many hints along the way, many far from subtle, that the sixth Mizmor was written to explain what Dowd would endure to save his people. His has not been a bed or roses but, instead, tears. Pisach was physically painful while Sheol was emotionally excruciating. And yet, even knowing how agonizing it would be, aware that his people would deny what he had done for them, he saw it through. He endured the darkness, swam in a sea of our injustice, and passed the test. He is now awaiting your response. Not long ago, I had a similar conversation at dinner with the wife of a former business associate. Following a discussion with her husband about what I had come to know about YAHOWAH and his Torah, Dowd, and the Micro and had subsequently written in these books and shared during all of the radio programs, she interrupted and said, "You need to do a better job of getting the word out so that more people know about this." My reply was similar to Dowd's. I've been doing my part, having written 28 books and spoken on over 10,000 radio programs, freely offering everything I've learned through these translations. If you or anyone else chooses to disregard this information, then the failing is yours and theirs, not mine. Although, my bravado was tempered once we became aware that Dowd was the Passover lamb and that his soul endured Sheol to deposit our guilt in the least accessible place. If it were not for the realization that I had swum through a cesspool of human degradation composing goddamn religion and Twistianity, I would have been embarrassed. The fact remains, however, that we should all be drawing these kinds of comparisons to Dowd. Since he is the example we are encouraged to follow, we should be following him and supporting him. YAHOWAH said that he was his beloved son and that he was right. We cannot do better than this. My eyes no longer function properly because I can no longer see straight, any, my ability to see has been incapacitated, and my sight is failing, due to, because of, this distressful situation, this mockery and provocation based upon erroneous perceptions, the annoying sadness associated with these taunts and errant observations. The condition is growing old and deteriorating, the situation is continuing to advance and is worsening, with all of my adversities, confinement, degradation, and troubles, in the totality of the constraints being placed on me by all of those besieging me, with all of the distressful things that are being done to diminish my significance, along with the constant attempts of those who are hostile toward me, who demonstrate their enmity, to silence me. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 6 verse 7. While Dowd is unique and irreplaceable, our empathy for our king and resulting respect grows when we try to see these events from his perspective. His willingness to offer his soul as the means to fulfill Chag Matzah was heroic because the physical and emotional anguish would have been horrific. However, there was something far more debilitating and appalling, and that is having endured this hellish ordeal for the benefit of his people only to have Yisrael and Yehudah deny that he had done so. And that is Dowd's issue here. He is so mad, he cannot see straight. Between Judaism and Christianity, both conceived by Jews, his role in our salvation has been rendered erroneous and annoying, and this has grown old. We have been conditioned to become especially alert any time Dowd's significance is being assailed, because he is quite simply the most important person in Yah's plans for his people, especially his children. The Tseror, adversary, has done a masterful job of Tseror, diminishing his relevance, Tseror, assailing his credibility through Shaul and Akiba, the Tseror, rival to the king, and Tseror, adversarial, apostle. With Dowd's Tseror, significance constrained, the light he shines on Yehudah, Yerushalayim, Maria, Zion, and especially the Torah teaching in Berith covenant is Tseror, dimmed. It is the beloved Son, the main branch, the anointed Messiah, the chosen shepherd, the Lamb of God, and Yisrael's King who, more than anyone else, is responsible for Yisrael's redemption and reconciliation, and is now calling his people home, ready to meet them once they arrive. As an interesting note, both Shaul's, the adversarial king and opposition apostle, were demon-possessed. In addition to their hostility toward Dowd, and their fixation on discrediting him, both sought to annul and mischaracterize the Torah which guided him. Also interesting with regard to Tseror, we are once again confronted with the realization that Dowd's adversaries will be responsible for Yisrael's troubles and, thus, be indistinguishable from YAHOWAH's enemies. The horrible period which awaits Yisraelites, Israelis and Yehudim Jews, when the nation and people are besieged and constrained, Yom Tzara known as the time of Yaakov's troubles, is based upon Tseror. As far as I can tell, the only time it's good to have enemies is when our foes are adversarial to God and his people. Then they are a badge of honor, demonstrating that we are right. Dowd, like his heavenly father, had no use for, or interest in, anyone who was opposed to Yah. And he, like God, was and remains committed to ridding our planet of their stench. In this light, this is one of the few places where it does not matter if we render the imperative mood as a command or as a choice, because those who are opposed to God will be taken away one way or the other. Get away from me, Sir Min any, whether by compulsion or choice, leave me alone, go away because you are rejected and forsaken and will be taken away or abolished, removed from my presence, Qowl imperative, all of you who carry out, Qowl, who perform, fashion or forge, plot and devise, or benefit from, Qowl participle, that which is corrupt and deceitful, evil and injurious, dishonest and fraudulent, religious and idolatrous, harmful and misleading, because, for indeed. Yahowah, has heard, Shama, has listened to, the voice sounding, Qowl, my lament and the expressions of my consternation, my dismay and disappointment. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 6 verse 8. Dowd wants to rid himself of those who are misleading and religious. He was not interested in saving them. A number of years ago, I went through a trying episode with a covenant member and a longtime friend who didn't like the way I responded to an email filled with the revolting religious arguments of a moody theological seminary graduate. I took Dowd's approach, which was to expose and condemn the religious diatribe, while my friend not only condemned me for doing so, he advocated accommodation and acceptance, drawing the Christian into fellowship rather than pushing him away. Since Yahowah has affirmed that Dowd is right, and clearly inspired these lyrics, the correct approach to theological postulates and fraudulent religious rhetoric is to respond similarly. We are not born into a spirit of compromise but instead of contrast. If we are not distinctly different, and show it, we are not covenant. Stated another way, no one has ever come to know God by advocating or accommodating religious positions. Until a person starts questioning their religion, Yahowah and his testimony remain outside their grasp. God's word is squandered on those who argue for its counterfeits. Therefore, when someone says or writes something to us which we know to be inconsistent with Yahowah's testimony, our initial responsibility is to refute the fraudulent claims. Then when corrected, if the individual acknowledges that they were wrong and if they are receptive to the truth, we can share the Torah and Berith with them. Speaking of the wrong approach, you will find obey written after listen and hear among the definitions of Shama in many lexicons, even though there is no support for that connotation linguistically. And yet, this is one of many statements in which the very notion of rendering Shama as obey is absurd since Dowd is speaking to God. The religious want their constituents to obey them, which they achieve by misrepresenting God's instructions as commands and then misrepresenting his vocabulary such that listening is convoluted into obeying. But how many times can we point this out before we realize that we are pounding our heads against the brick wall of faith? Dowd had had enough, and who's to blame him? Lastly, since any modifies Baki consternation not the Qowl voice, it is possible, perhaps likely, that the voice is that of the king's herald. He would vocalize the Zoroa's lament at a time when the injurious delusions were the most debilitating. Turning to the next statement, Dowd realized that when we ask God to do what he wants done we can be assured that he will do as we request. So, while tefillah does not mean prayer, if you want your petitions answered, follow Dowd's example. And as you do, please note how often he refers to Yahowah by name. In this one verse, there are two more than you'll find in both Talmuds combined. Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our shalom, restoration, has listened to, Shama, has heard, Qowl perfect, this favor for me, tbnisrael, this consideration for me. Yahowah, has received, grasped hold of, and accepts, lakach, has obtained and approves, Qowl imperfect, my thoughtful request to intervene, tefillah, my desire to provide intercession, from Palel, meditation regarding intervening, judgment based upon thoughtful consideration, and a diligent assessment leading to a responsible reaction, to consider, decide, and judge. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 6 verse 9. Once again, we find evidence that Dowd went to Yahowah with this request. For a myriad of reasons, he wanted to redeem himself and save his people by fulfilling Pesach and Matzah. His motivations were pure and his argument was sound, and so, considering the cost and benefits, Yahowah agreed with his son. He not only received his request to intervene, he accepted it, quickly grasping the implications. So that you are aware, tekina is a challenging word to translate because its root, chan and mercy does not work in the sentence. Further, it cannot be applied to Dowd in this context. So, to better appreciate the meaning of tekina, we need to consider how it is used early in the Torah. And we find that it is conveyed a disproportionate amount of the time in the hitpil stem, where the speaker is acting on his own initiative. In these cases, tekina is an earnest plea made by someone beseeching another for a favor without any outside influence. It's not providing a favor but, instead, requesting one, which is why it was defined as such in Mizmor 6:9 above. Dowd was requesting a Chanaan favor, in fact two of them. He wanted the popular deceptions and religious delusions swirling around him silenced so that his people could capitalize on his sacrifice. In addition, he wanted Yahowah to approve his request, the most wonderful and terrifying decision ever made. He wanted the opportunity to serve as the Pesach aisle. And yet, there is still another challenge in this sentence, this one overcoming a long history of religious corruption. English Bibles render tefillah as prayer, even though there is no basis for that connotation in the etymology of the word. It is from Palel, which is, to think and consider then judge, to meditate and then request intervention. Dowd wanted to intercede for his people, and the best way to do that was by fulfilling Chag Matzah. Lastly, the use of lakach, meaning, to grasp, receive, accept, and hold, is ill-fitting when viewed from the perspective of obtaining and holding something in one's hands. However, it is perfectly suited to the idea of mentally embracing an idea, of grasping its meaning and accepting its potential. Cognizant of these realities, of the actual meaning of Shama, tekina, lakach, and tefillah, my translation differs markedly from more popular renderings. But at least now you are aware of my rationale for these choices. The prime purveyor of forgiveness isn't usually in a forgiving mood. We should, therefore, view Dowd's sacrifice as divisive, separating those for whom it was intended from those who would deny what he had accomplished. Said another way, while Dowd perfected the children of the covenant by taking our collective guilt to Sheol and depositing it there, never to be seen again, he also earned the right to determine Sheol's future inmates. And as it would transpire, he is eager to humiliate those who disparaged his name, titles, accolades, and sacrifice. All, Qowl, every one of, my enemies with animosity and rancor, any, my foes, those opposed to me, those who show hostility toward me, will be ashamed and humiliated as a result of their own choices, Baush, will have chosen to be disparaged and embarrassed, Qowl imperfect Jussive. They will have chosen their fate which will be terrifying and agonizing beyond comprehension, receiving what they have chosen to perpetrate, YAHOWAH, they will be totally bewildered and altogether despondent, trembling, Nifel imperfect Jussive. Once again, as a result of their own choices and having turned away, they will be held accountable for their shameful ambitions, Shub Baush, again and again they have turned their backs and pursued disparaging desires, having repeatedly chosen wrongly and thus have been continuously mistaken, and at long last they will be found guilty and thus be forever embarrassed as a result of their motivations, Qowl imperfect Jussive, in an instant and continually thereafter, Riga, at that moment and constantly for the full duration of time. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 6 verse 10. The Messiah wasn't being mean or even vindictive but, instead, equitable and fair. Those who had deprived his people of the restored dignity he had afforded them would be denied theirs. Those who had promoted Judaism and Christianity to deny him the respect he had earned, and Yisrael of the opportunity for redemption, chose their fate by denying others a better life. This known, the concluding sentence is a bit of a challenge to translate because the primary use of Shub is to return, which is the opposite of what Dowd would be asking. And while Shub is used to speak of returning 270 times, its second most common usage, occurring some 120 times, is as an auxiliary verb whose function is to repeat the action of the verb which follows, in this case Baush. We should, therefore, recognize that it is revealing that there is a repeated propensity to turn away from God. This reflects a pattern of behavior which will result in continuous reprisal. It is telling that so many have shown an aversion toward Dowd's status with God, preferring to see Jesus, Akiba, Paul, Muhammad, or Maimonides in his place. Indirectly, even prime ministers, presidents, and popes are in opposition to Dowd as the undisputed king of Yisrael because they want to control their nation's status and fate. While many prefer to solicit other saviors, they have chosen poorly, bringing judgment upon themselves. Those who sought acclaim, to rise above the most uncommon of men, will in the end be shamed before Dowd. Those who have promised salvation elsewhere will be denied it. When contemplating the nature of Dowd's foes, keep in mind they were not a collection of isolated individuals with petty personal grievances. Dowd represents Yahowah and his Torah, his Berith and Micra, and he is Yisrael and Yehudah. He is the Tzaddak rightful heir to all God is offering. Dowd is the beloved son of God, the firstborn of the covenant family, the branch from which everything worthwhile grows, the prophet who explained the past and revealed the future, the lyricist who sang the songs God most loved to hear, the shepherd of our father's sheep, the sacrificial lamb who made our salvation possible, and the returning king of the universe. Dowd David is living proof that the Torah not only instructs and guides, but indeed saves, nullifying the basis of Christianity. Further undermining the world's most popular lie, he is the Savior, the Son of God, and the Messiah. But he is also lethal to Judaism because, as the Messiah fulfilling the first three mode, there is no basis for rabbinic Judaism, for Akiba, for his false Messiah, Bar Kokhba, or for denying the benefits of Pesach while avoiding Matzah and Bikurim altogether. The rabbinical denial of these things led to the destruction of the temple, the raising of Judea, the diaspora, and to the prolonged estrangement from God. As such, his foes are those who have chosen to ignore all of this and establish political institutions and religious doctrines in conflict with his life and lyrics. In the most broadly accurate and relevant sense, Dowd is predicting that those who have chosen to promulgate religious or political ideologies will be humiliated the moment he returns. Dowd never met a threat to his people that he didn't confront, and over a lifetime of conflict, it never grew wearisome. But this was an entirely different situation. He would surrender body and soul, willingly allowing the worst of his people's foes to torture him before going to hell to restore Yisrael. Worse, there would be no fanfare on this occasion, only rebuke. The greatest gift ever offered would be purloined, misappropriated by some and denied by others. And so, the Zeroah was naturally anguished by the slanderous rebuke. And there was a torrent of it because the fullness and importance of his life remains largely unknown. Fortunately, the demise of the knuckleheads is both impending and inevitable. So here once again is Dowd's story in his own words. To the enduring leader, Lahanatsak, accompanied by stringed instruments, Ba Nagina, above and beyond, Al, the 8th octave, Shamanith. A song of Dowd the beloved, Mizmor la Dowd. Yahowah, Yahowah, you consistently prove your case through me with persuasive arguments which vindicate me and acquit through me, Yada Yahowah, thereby eliminating everything displeasing and disagreeable, Al-Ba, Af. Your instructions enable me to be correct and to teach about vindication, Yada Yasar, and, Wah, you are never overly protective or antagonistic, Al-Ba Kima Ada. Mizmor 6:1. You want to be kind to me, choosing to show compassion, mercy, and favoritism through me, Chanan Yahowah, Yahowah, for I am comparatively weak, Ky Umul You have chosen to promote healing and restoration through me, Rapha Yahowah, Yahowah, because, Ky, my essential essence, Etzem is anxious, eager to hasten the terrifying process and agony, Bahal. Mizmor 6:2. In addition, Wah, my soul, Nipesh is enormously eager and anxious about the terrifying agony, Mio di Bahal. So, Wah, you, Ada, Yahowah, Yahowah, will commence the restoring witness, Ada, Admati. Mizmor 6:3. Yahowah, Yahowah, you and I both want you to return, Chalaz Nipesh It is my desire and your decision to deliver salvation with my soul, Shalatz Nipesh You want to deliver me, liberating, rescuing, and saving through me, Yasha, Eni, because of the witness this provides to, Laman, your enduring love, unfailing kindness, tremendous generosity, and loyal devotion, Chesed Ada. Mizmor 6:4. For indeed, by contrast, there nothing by a void, all is for naught, because there is no, remembrance or mention of you, Zikr, Ada, in the plague of death, the pandemic disease that causes entire populations to die, Ba Hamoth. In Sheol and with Shayul, Ba Sheol, who, will come to know you, expressing their appreciation for you, even recognize or acknowledge you, Yada Ada. Mizmor 6:5. I have done my part, expending the time and energy, Yaga, to the point of exhaustion over enduring physical and then emotional pain, Ba Anacha Eni. Within the all-encompassing darkness, Ba Kol Layla, I swim, Sacha, within my bed of twisted injustice, Maida Eni, with my weeping and tears, Ba Daima Eni. My place of repose, Eresh Eni, is of testing, a trial focused on achieving the proper response, Masa. Mizmor 6:6. My eyes no longer function properly as my ability to witness this is incapacitated, Ash Ein Eni, as a result of, this distressful situation, this mockery and provocation based upon erroneous perceptions and the annoying sadness associated with these taunts and errant assessments, Kaas. The condition is growing old and deteriorating, Athak, with all of my adversities, confinement, degradation, and troubles, Ba Colt Serer Eni. Mizmor 6:7. Get away from me, whether by compulsion or choice, leave me alone, go away because you are rejected and forsaken and will be taken away or abolished, Sir Min Eni, all of you who carry out, Kol Pa'al, that which is corrupt and deceitful, injurious and fraudulent, on, because, Yahowah, has heard, Shama, the voice sounding, Qowl, my lament and the expressions of my consternation, Baki Eni. Mizmor 6:8. Yahowah, has listened to, Shama, this favor for me, Tekina Eni. Yahowah, has received, grasped hold of, and accepts, Lakach, my thoughtful request to intervene, Tefillah Eni. Mizmor 6:9. All, Qowl, my enemies with animosity and rancor, Oyeb Eni, will be ashamed and humiliated as a result of their own choices, Bausch. They will have chosen their fate which will be terrifying and agonizing beyond comprehension, receiving what they have chosen to perpetrate, Wamaudi Bahal. Once again, as a result of their own choices and having turned away, they will be held accountable for their shameful ambitions, Shub Bausch, in an instant and continually thereafter, Riga. Mizmor/Psalm 6:10. For his people to benefit from what he has done, those who have misled the world for the sake of their religion must be silenced and refuted. The greatest treasure is of no value until it is found and made available to those who will benefit from it. Yod Hey. While it is common for Dowd to dedicate his songs, it is highly unusual for him to title them, as he has done with the 7th Mizmor. This is also the only occasion where Dowd has designated his rival, so this should be interesting. Erring and going astray, Shigayan, the consequence of being misled and of being ravaged and raped by the ignorant, the story about the one who intoxicates the foolish and leads them away, including the significance of being mistaken, from Shaga, to go astray, to err, to mislead and inebriate by way of ignorance and own, that which pertains to the preceding. By Dowd, La Dowd, according to the beloved, who, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, which to reveal the correct and narrow path to get the most out of life, sang, Seer, he conveyed verbally in a melodic and rhythmic manner, to, La, for, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our shallow restoration, against, Al, concerning and in opposition to, the words. And accounts, Dabri, the manner of speaking, the statements, and the message, of the lowly cauldron, Kush, a crucible, a furnace for testing and evaluating, then discarding, from Kur, to smelt and remove in a furnace and or Ushi, insignificant and weak, and thus lowly and little, of the Benjamite, Binyamini, son of the right side or from the south. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 7, title and dedication. This title is important because it means that this Mizmor was written to Shigayan, explain the consequence of going astray, of being wrong, and even of ignorance, which results in someone being ravaged and raped by the foolish who have been misled and intoxicated. While this title is broadly stated, the additional dialogue begins to zero in on the man who propagated the misleading religion which has negatively influenced Yisrael. He is one of the two most infamous Benjamites, albeit this one's words need to be opposed. Since these are the only books and audio programs where the person commonly recognized as David is referred to as Dowd, it is interesting to note that his name appears 1,073 times, with the overwhelming majority written as Dowd. In every book or psalm compiled within proximity to the author, we find Dowd, while in Chronicles, Ezra, and Nehemiah, which were written centuries later, we find Dawid. Further, the basis of his name, Dowd Beloved, appears another 60 times. Collectively, Dowd's name is presented more often than any other except Yahowah. The oldest proof of his name and existence outside of these prophecies and psalms is the Mesha stele dating to 830 BCE which identifies Yehuda with the house of Dowd. This known, what are we to do with the reference to Cush? If we were to examine the lexicons, they would tell us that Cush means black and that it should be translated as Ethiopia or some other unknown place, none of which is likely. There isn't any geographical, genetic, or etymological evidence linking Cush with Africa or black skin pigmentation as is so often inferred, likely for racist reasons. Further, after referencing over 20 lexicons and biblical commentators, the theologians and scholars remain clueless as to the identity of the individual being addressed in the 7th Mizmor. Most, unwilling to plead ignorance, suggest without evidence that he may have been one of King Shaul's friends. But this we know, as a Benjamite, he was a Yisraelite and therefore, Cush cannot be his country of origin or race in this context. And since there isn't any record of Dowd having a foe by that name, I think we are best served to translate Cush using the nearest equivalents, which begin with Kur, a cauldron for testing and a crucible to evaluate an affliction. A Kur is a furnace in which a weak case is discarded for lack of evidence, thereby removing such worthless notions. Ushi is the only other possibility. It means insignificant and weak and, thus, lowly and little. These are the only Hebrew concepts, apart from directly related names, which share 2 of the 3 letters found in Cush without adding a host of others. That said, should you be curious, geographically, a Cushite would come from the northern extremity of what was once Babylon or from a region closer to Egypt. Genetically, he would be associated with the people surrounding Arabia, particularly on the west, north, and eastern perimeters of the desert peninsula. Politically, we are told that during the time of Jacob's troubles, Cush would be feared near and far, but ultimately judged and condemned. This known, there are no Cushites from the tribe of Benjamin, adding additional credibility to the prospect of translating the word rather than trying to transliterate it as a name. Along these lines, attitudinally, a slight majority of the references to Cush are unfavorable. Textually, there appears to be a plot underfoot, one that became evident as I was attempting to ascertain how lexicons such as Strong's opine that Cush equals black. Predisposed to verify prior to relying on, I couldn't find the slightest validation for black. As a result, it appears that political and religious interests have tried to hoodwink the unwary so as to justify the likes of the slave trade and racial discrimination. And yet, Yahowah knew that they would do so and rebuked them. He would write, "Can the Cushi change his skin?" Jeremiah 13 verse 23. Lastly, be aware, everyone who has attempted to resolve this question is either speculating or extrapolating. And speaking of such, my initial assessment is that this Benjamite beast is none other than Shaul, the wannabe apostle, not the king. As we move through the text, I'd encourage you to form your own conclusions. As we move into the song itself, we find Dowd reinforcing the covenant's third condition, that we come to trust and rely upon Yahowah. As a result, he knew that God would save him. Yahowah, Yahowah, an accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Haya, existence in our Shalom, reconciliation, my God, Elohim Eni, in you, Ba, Ada, with you and near you, I find a trusted shelter and a safe place, Chasa, comfort and refuge, protection, Qowl perfect. You have decided to deliver me and save through me, Yasha Eni, you are victorious, choosing to rescue and liberate by enabling me to be like you, hyphal imperative second person masculine singular, you choose to pursue salvation through me. Your will is to defend me and to deliver salvation through me, snatching me away, Natsal Eni, you have decided to rescue me, hyphal imperative second person masculine singular, from all, min Qowl, my pretentious pursuers, especially the boisterous who are verbally contentious against me, Radaf Eni, those who overwhelmingly confuse, who boldly devise schemes against me without merit, the arrogant and afflicted, frenzied and senseless, the proud and defiant, self-willed who promote false gods. And encourage religious worship, a pejorative term for the idolatrous, Qowl participle. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 7 verse 1. Dowd didn't just find Chasa shelter, he would become the king of Sukkah shelters. While the Micro-EY commence with sacrifices in Passover and unyeasted bread, they conclude with the celebrations of reconciliations and shelters. And throughout, Dowd is the star of the show. In this war of words between the most relevant Yahud and the pretentious and predatory Benjamite, I was particularly intrigued with how the imperative shaped the prophecy such that we find Dowd in the center of Yah's will. And by using the hyphal stem, we find Yahowah using Dowd to save Yisrael. Over the long march of history, there have been 2 individuals who have been especially contentious with Dowd, the misguided king Shaul Saul and the mistaken apostle Shaul Paul. The former tried to kill him, and the latter sought to nullify him. So, we'll continue to look for clues which may point us in one direction or the other. Should you be wondering why I categorically state that Paul sought to undermine the importance of Dowd and the promises made to him, the answer is as obvious as it is profoundly important. Therefore, in an upcoming chapter we are going to excoriate Paul's arguments regarding Dowd, one of which is found in Acts and the other in Romans. On both occasions, the father of lies and son of wickedness deliberately misquoted Yahowah to grossly misrepresent what Dowd wrote and append what he represents, thereby nullifying the cure for his plague. This assessment of Paul is important to Jews for 2 reasons. First, Judaism was conceived to confront his lies. And second, Christianity has done more to harm Jews than any religion other than Judaism. We will pursue the arguments Dowd the Beloved has against Shaul question him, leaving no doubt that the principal author of the Christian New Testament was Satan's apostle. For the first time, perhaps since the 7th and 89th Mizmor Psalms were recorded, we are going to undermine the myth of Christianity and its Lord Jesus Christ, while at the same time establishing what Dowd represents to Yahowah, to the covenant, and to all of us, especially Yisrael. Also relevant, Dowd was not asking Yah to help him in a debate. He would not need any. The 89th Mizmor is more than sufficient. Further, he was not asking to save the boisterous and contentious but, instead, to deliver him from them. We are called to separate ourselves from the ways of men, not chase after them. We are not called to save the world but, instead, to distance ourselves from it. Or otherwise, pen, because lest he would, in the manner of, Ka, just as and compared to, a fiercely destructive being, a vicious beast in search of prey, area, perhaps as a lion, from, Ara, to pluck away through the course of one's life, he would rip apart, Tariff, he would tear into pieces in a violent and abhorrent manner, seeking to destroy me to his own satisfaction, negating and mangling in an appalling manner, my soul, Nipesh Eni, my consciousness, giving me the ability to observe and respond, the essence of my life, my attributes, attitude, and ambitions, snatching it away and shredding it, parak, stripping it of any meaning such that it shrivels up and is removed, depriving it of its ability to save, ba, ein natsau, without sparing it, hyphal participle. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 7 verse 2. The most verbally contentious Benjamite, easily the most boisterous and pretentious, gave rise to the ultimate beast. Shaul. Paul fathered the Roman Catholic Church and its stepchildren, Orthodox and Protestant Christianity. No one has afflicted Yehudim more than this overwhelmingly confusing and senselessly defiant, especially egotistical man. Also telling, in his lone prophecy, one he actually got wrong, Shaul. Paul used the Greek word harpazo to predict a violent snatching away during the rapture, thereby linguistically identifying himself as Daud's adversary, making him the vicious Benjamite wolf in sheep's clothing. As a prophet, at some point, Daud was shown how his life and lyrics would be diminished and demeaned by the Shaul of Christendom. After all, no one would have a more pervasive influence over how he and his testimony would be perceived relative to others or over how his people would be treated. Considering all that Daud had achieved and written, the overwhelming popularity of Paul's noxious drivel would have been shocking to Daud. The man known for his relationship with God, for his brilliant mind, and inspiring oratory would have been disoriented by the realization that such stupidity had become so widely accepted. And so, I can almost see the puzzled expression on his face as he asked God if he was somehow to blame. Then as he sobered to this disorienting reality, Daud returned to the feisty fellow we have all come to know and love. He taunted the wayward Benjamite, daring his rival to press his case directly before him, not to correct him but, instead, to nullify the adversarial effect of this adversary on his people. This said, since Daud's soul has never been at risk to the likes of Shaul, we have a couple of ways to process this reference. Daud is symbolic of Yehudah, and there is no question that the soul of Yah's people has been in jeopardy for a long time, specifically as Yehudim Jews have been menaced by Christians these past 2,000 years. Or we can see his Nepesh representing the essence of Daud's ultimate sacrifice, such that Paul was trying to undermine what he had accomplished. YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our shalom, restoration, my God, Elohi, what have I done to deserve this, Asa Zoth, how did what I accomplished lead to this, Qowl perfect. How is there, Ein Yesh, what exists of any substance so show, anything wrong, dishonest, or disingenuous, all, at fault, misleading, inappropriate, or anything contrary to the standard, deviating from it, on my hand, any. Mizmor 7:3. Under what condition, have I rendered and deserved the punishment, Gamal, have I dealt out something deserving being rewarded this way, Qowl perfect, of a malignant and miserable attack by an adversarial and contemptible countryman who is hurtful and injurious, overwhelmingly evil ethnically related loudmouthed individual, as recompense for me having completely fulfilled the means to reconciliation, Shalem Penny, for me having made full restitution, totally enabling the way to restoration, Qowl participle. Have I inappropriately, without justification or reasonable cause, taken something away, withdrawing favor to plunder the relationship, Waraikum Shalats, have I vainly removed and withdrawn something, Peel imperfect pedagogic cohortative, from this adversary trying to limit and constrain me, Sarah any, from the enemy besieging me, the foe attempting to bind me, this hostile opponent and troublesome rival of mine. Mizmor 7:4. This hostile opponent and antagonist, this adversarial foe, Oyeb, this rancorous individual with personal enmity, singular, has chosen to pursue and persecute, Radaf, he, of his own volition, wants to press his case, aggressively striving to systematically harass, Qowl imperfect third-person masculine singular jussive, my soul, Nepesh any, my conscious ability to observe and respond, my attitude and aptitude, the essence of my life and purpose. Further, he has chosen to confrontationally overshadow, Nazag, he wants to overtake and replace, extending boundaries, hyphal imperfect third-person masculine singular jussive, and consistently treads upon, Waramas, and he wants to trample and stamp on, hyphal imperfect third-person masculine singular jussive, my lives, Chaim any, the times I have lived, for the land, Laha Eretz. Therefore, my overall relevance and reward, my significance and status, my respect and reputation, Kabod any, my dignity and honor, abundant attributes and presence, my manifestation of power and glorious gift, he wants to dwell and remain, always placed, Shakan, he has chosen for me to always reside, hyphal imperfect third-person masculine singular jussive, within the dust, dirt, and debris, Laha, afar, as the smallest aspect of the material realm. Let's pause now and contemplate what has been brought before us, Selah. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 7 verse 5. Having previously translated Psalms 22 and 88, we know that Daud wrote accurately and graphically of the great suffering he endured to fulfill Pesach and Matzah, leading to Bikurim. And now, based upon this Mizmor, it's evident that he was taken forward another 1 to 4 scores of years, a mere blink of the eye, to witness the systematic undoing of what he had done. As horrific as the agony of Roman crucifixion and incarceration in Sheol hell had been, this would have been far worse. It's not just that Paul and Akiba would deny what he had accomplished, while disavowing the fulfillment of the Mikra, they both offered Daud's acclaim to a complete fraud, Jesus and Bar Kokhba respectively. The most credible man who ever lived, performing the most prophetically detailed act in history, in full public view, was replaced by the likes of the Easter Bunny and Tooth Fairy, or if you prefer, variations on Dionysus and Marduk. Paul and Akiba would not only preclude Gentiles and Jews from benefiting from the salvation Daud had provided, but both would also lie, claiming to speak in the name of God. Their vile denouncements would be treasured as scripture. Since this was all attributed to a single individual, as we strive to determine if the culprit was Paul, Akiba, or Muhammad, it is germane to know that without Shaul, there is no rabbinic Judaism and, thus, no Akiba or Muhammad. Paul was the instigator and Christianity, Judaism, and Islam were the consequence. I say this because the defining event in Akiba's life was foisting a false messiah on Jews to counter the false claims Paul and Peter had made of their Dionysian Christ. It led to the Roman invasion and diaspora. Further, Islam's Quran would have been limited to meaningless Yemenite poetry had rabbis not sold Muhammad the Talmud readings he used to make himself, his religion, and his God appear on par with the real one. Paul was among the first to use the title rabbi when he claimed to be the wisest and most devoted of them. Preference for the term grew within religious circles throughout the late 1st and 2nd centuries, leading to its aggrandizement in the Babylonian Talmud. Having been exposed to this arrogant beast, to the Torahless one known as Paul, and considering Paul's lack of evidence and dearth of reason, Dowd would have been champing at the bit to condemn him in this manner. He would need neither sling nor stone to topple the edifice that has become Christianity. Dowd would make his case within the inspired word of Yahowah while his foe advanced his vile rhetoric by misquoting God, then claiming, "But I, Paul, say." At this point, we might as well accept reality because it is blatantly obvious. Dowd isn't railing against some nameless village idiot who was once affiliated with the deceased king, Shaul. This adversary is so infamous and irritating that God, himself, hates him and is committed to excoriating him. Dowd is equally inflamed and engaged against what Paul has wrought. The most exasperating line among these is, under what circumstance, after what I've rendered, do I deserve the chastisement, criticism, and castigation, Qowl, of a malignant and miserable attack by an adversarial and contemptible countryman who is deliberately hurtful and injurious, as recompense for me having completely fulfilled the means to reconciliation, Shalem Eni. Dowd had completed the most courageous and magnanimous act in the history of humankind by fulfilling Pesach and Matzah only to have a marginally illiterate and largely irrational, demon-possessed, wannabe Jewish rabbi deny it all. Paul even had the chutzpah to claim that Dowd was dead and buried, his remains in the dust of the earth, giving him the right to call his misnomer the Son of God, the Christ, and Savior. And by a factor of 10 billion to 1, the false prophet is believed, and the actual prophet is denied. It's incredulous. How can the religious be this stupid? Yahowah, Yahowah, an accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Hayah, existence and our Shalom, reconciliation. You and I both want to take a stand, having jointly decided to rise up in opposition. Qum, it is my will and your desire, in that we both agree that we must stand upright against this foe. Cal imperative pedagogic cohortative second person masculine singular, in your righteous indignation, tremendous resentment. And resolute anger, Baf, in your fury and great animosity, showing your extreme displeasure and antipathy, nostrils flaring. You have chosen to rise up, Nasa, your will is to be carried away and aroused, Nifle imperative, against, the insolent and arrogant outbursts, Ibra, the epic rage and fury, the overwhelmingly haughty pride, and the unpleasant actions, of the troublesome rival trying to limit and constrain me, Sarah, the enemy besieging me, the foe attempting to bind me, this hostile opponent and distressful and vexing adversary of mine. You and I both want to be alert and aroused, ready for action, eager to expose the false testimony, your will is to stir up and ready to bear it all, exposing the chaff, Cal imperative pedagogic cohortative second person masculine singular, toward me, L.N.E. You have explained and appointed, you have provided direction and instruction regarding, Peel perfect, judgment and the means to make informed and rational decisions regarding the way to resolve disputes, Mishpat, prompting good judgment, rational thinking, and effective debate, from Ma, ponder the implications of Shabat, making good decisions based upon sound judgment with disciplined analysis under the auspices of a judiciary using legitimate evidence and persuasive arguments. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 7 verse 6. Neither father nor son is tolerant, and nothing upsets them more than misappropriating and nullifying what the son has accomplished. It is a demeaning insult to Dowd and an affront to Yahowah, making it look like he could neither save nor honor his promises. By denying the Micra-EY, which provide the benefits of the covenant, everything father and son sought to achieve and offer is thwarted. Yahowah and Dowd had come up with a wonderful plan and had executed it perfectly. The problem remained as it had always been, people, and in particular, the chosen people. The religious ruin everything they touch, such that even the best father and son have to offer is stained and sullied beyond recognition. God is rightly opposed to the religious. He will hold them all in contempt. Those who robbed Dowd of his dignity and Yahowah of his family through religious misappropriations have engendered the Almighty's wrath. He will not pity those they fooled, and he will remain resolutely angry at those who misled them. One of the most relevant insights into the Torah, prophets, and Psalms is that Yahowah invests as much time exposing and condemning religion as he does teaching us how to best live our lives. These Mizmor are no exception. Since the moment he began speaking with us, God has been resolute, always ready to direct our attention to the hellish consequence of false testimony. In this case, Yahowah's animosity is directed toward those who have spoken falsely of his son. And since Judaism and Christianity both deny Dowd fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim and that he will return on Kippurim to be king of Sukkah, he will judge those he has come to resent. Through Moses and Dowd, Yahowah provided us with the means to make informed and rational decisions regarding his way to resolve the disputes which otherwise estrange us. All three were essential to this process. And yet, the religious not only choose poorly, but they also make it difficult to know and accept the truth. They have become the ultimate impediment. If not for considerable due diligence, I may have been among the many misinterpreting Dowd's use of Laom in this next statement. Throughout the Torah and into the prophets, it consistently seems to address people of distinct political and religious entities or the population of different nations and regions who congregate together under their leaders and who are governed by antiquated philosophies like paganism. And considering the overwhelming infusion of Greek language and ideas into Judaism and Christianity, both are considerations. And while that would normally be a bad thing, in this case, father and son are inviting them to return to Yisrael after joining them in the refutation of their religion. In particular, there are 3 Babylons in which Jews live, 3 Laom from which they are being called out. The United States of America, and to a slightly lesser extent, Europe, is political Babylon, nations that have not only armed Yisrael's enemies but have also sought to give them her land. The region surrounding Yisrael, the places corrupted by Muhammad and Islam, all of which seek to destroy the promised land, represent geographic Babylon. And the Roman Catholic Church is the epitome of religious Babel. The Church has long been the principal source of Jewish antagonism worldwide. After nearly 2,000 years of oppression, millions of ethnic Jews have chosen to assimilate into these cultures rather than be degraded and murdered by them. Affirming this, recent DNA studies demonstrate that there may be as many Jews in religious and geographic Babylon as there are in political Babylon. And so, here we find Yahuwah's troubadour calling the YAHOWAH people from these three distinct national and religious interests and geographical locations back into his fold, back home where Dowd can watch over them and protect them, back to Yahuwah. Those who answer the call to leave the YAHOWAH of Babel, and who participate in the second Exodus, will not arrive unaccompanied. Covenant members who have been echoing Dowd's message, those who have chosen to serve as witnesses, will be there to welcome them now that they all share a common and correct understanding of Father and Son. Let the people formerly of distinct political and religious entities, YAHOWAH, the population of different nations and regions who had congregated together under their leaders and who were governed by antiquated philosophies, plural, and the community of the witness, YAHOWAH, the flock of those who acknowledge the testimony, singular, choose to surround you, turning to you of their own volition, electing to change such that they can gather around you, Sabab, Ada, elect to change such. That they can gather around you, Qowl, brings about a state whereby these people are intensely influenced by their choices, imperfect, with unfolding consequences, Joseph, as a result of their decisions made under the auspices of free will, and energic none, to be emphatic about the future. As a result of this, Al-High, and over this, you and I concur, wanting you to return and restore, Shub, you desire and I concur that you should come back and reinstate, Qowl imperative paragogic cohortative, will be genuinely and significantly influenced as a result of their desire to return, being in sync with God's will, the approach to the heights of heaven, Rome, to draw near the highest place, from Rome, to be lifted up and rise, growing while contributing. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 7 verse 7. Yahuwah, Dowd, and his witness are calling the chosen people back home, and out of human control, to live together with God. Coming home is a two-step process, beginning with leaving the realm of man. Then, after learning what is not true, they and we must accept Yahuwah's witness as accurate. Sure, there are some other conditions, but it all begins this way. This is the conclusion of mankind's 6,000-year degradation of the earth. Yahuwah is coming home. And a remnant of Yisrael along with some Gawi covenant members will be there to welcome Father and Son. We will gather in Jerusalem on reconciliations in year 6000 Yah. It will be a grand reunion. Father and Son will not only arrive together, they will be in one accord. Also worth considering, especially since we began by examining Moses' Torah prophecy referencing the Nakri observant foreigner, and consistent with the idea that the YAHOWAH represents political, religious, and geographic Babylon, this observant foreigner was born in America, symbolic of political Babylon, raised a Christian, indicative of religious Babylon, and began working with Yahuwah by exposing and condemning the Quran, Muhammad, Allah, and Islam, the genesis of geographic Babylon. Just as Moses was chosen in part because he had been born in Mitzrayim, Egypt and raised such that he understood and rejected its political, religious, militaristic, and economic doctrines and agendas, I, more than most, comprehend the YAHOWAH from which Yah is calling his people. It is possible that Prophet of Doom, subsequently rewritten and retitled God Damn Religion, preceded Yada Yahowah because understanding Islam was the weak link in this foreigner's resume. To be effective, the Nakri would have to love Yahuwah's testimony as much as he would come to hate that of his rivals. Moving on, the life, lyrics, and lessons of Dowd reveal that he was accepted by God because he was right regarding God. Time and time again we have found that it isn't about being a good person, about believing, about religion, about being charitable or giving. It's not even about having a good heart but about being correct. Yahuwah, decides and can choose to contend with or defend, dine, judges, and can govern and, thus, guide, or can argue against, Qowl imperative, the people and family, the people. Yahuwah, you have chosen to execute justice, to lead, govern, and judge through me, Shabat any, your will is to adjudicate between the parties with me, deciding what is right and wrong, vindicating and sentencing, through me, Qowl imperative, in accordance with, consistent with and in comparison to, me being right, Sadak any, me being accurate and correct, righteous and vindicated, justified and declared innocent, honest and fair, in accord with the standard end. Straightforward, acquitted and acquitting, cleared and voided of all charges, and consistent with, according to, the totality of my integrity and character leading to innocence, Taum any, my morality and guilt-free nature, that which completes me, causing me to be upright and innocent. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 7 verse 8. Every which way words allow, Dowd is holding a referendum on what he and his father have accomplished. And it is how we respond to it which determines if God is our judge or guide, contending with or defending us. This known, Yahuwah is the great delegator. And so, he has assigned his son to serve as exonerator or condemner. For the practitioners of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and progressive wokeism, that's a frightening realization because the advocates of each have denied him and his father. Also, if I may, like father like son. So be forewarned, Dowd is going to delegate his role as judge and jury. Further, in his revelations to Daniel, it appears that it will be to the two witnesses, Elia and Yada. With the help of the Malachi, and under Yahuwah's authority and Dowd's direction, they will be determining which souls deserve Sheol versus eradication. And they will do so such that those who were abused by these horrendous individuals are afforded closure, knowing that justice has been served. However, Dowd is far more than judge because he is also savior. Those who recognize and accept what he has accomplished will be vindicated by him. While Dowd clearly volunteered to fulfill the Moedim, it was Yahuwah's will to work through him. Dowd's credentials were stated in this declaration. He was right about God and honest in his reporting. He had integrity and character. He not only knew what YAHOWAH wanted, but he also spoke clearly to all who would listen. He talked the talk and walked the walk. There are times when YAHOWAH defends Yehudah and contends with Yisrael. He correctly responds to their initiative toward him. And fortunately, he is just, treating us fairly and consistently. Unfortunately, however, beyond his son and the work of his witness, there hasn't been much to commend these past 2,000 years. Also revealing, Dowd's concluding statement validates the point we have long known to be true. Dowd is living proof that the Torah perfects the imperfect. It is through the Torah that the wrong become right. Our fates will all be determined exactly the same way. It is by reading what Dowd has said and done that we discover how to be acquitted and vindicated. Moses transcribed YAHOWAH's plan of salvation and Dowd fulfilled it. He even wrote to us to explain what he would do and has done. I appreciate Dowd's character and I enjoy the realization that he was a character. In wanting to please God, it's good to know the characteristics he values. Let's not overlook the importance of this revelation. Inspired by God, Dowd announced for all to see that YAHOWAH has chosen to judge and save his people through his son. And since YAHOWAH is the author of the Torah and Dowd is his most acclaimed student, we would do well to follow his lead and use YAHOWAH's guidance to find our way home. It was Dowd, after all, who once bragged that YAHOWAH, himself, couldn't keep him out of heaven because he was bringing the Torah with him. If we do as Dowd did, study the Torah and think our way to God, we will join him. When our perspective and approach, when our judgment and attitude, when our conclusions and responses are consistent with his, we will find ourselves in God's presence. In his next statement, Dowd is revealing something almost as important, something every religious and political, patriotic and conspiratorial institution and individual would be wise to consider. For God to come, they must go. To re-establish the conditions enjoyed in Eden, everything which is harmful and troubling, invalid and improper, must be eradicated. Please, I beseech you, heightening the urgency and intensity of this request, the contemptible countryman who is harmful and troubling, invalid and appalling, are, this wicked and wrong citizen who is improper, undesirable, malignant, and miserable, guilty of being incorrect and condemnable, Rasha, of the unrighteous in conflict with the Torah, the unjust and immoral, the wrong who will be condemned for his criminal behavior, he must be stopped and cease to exist, Gamer, he must cease and actually and continually be proven inadequate and fail such that he desists, finished and existing no more, Qowl imperfect jussive third person masculine singular. And then, you can establish that which is enduring, kun, you can appoint and sustain, making ready and building, set up, and firmly secured, Qowl imperfect second person masculine singular, for those who are correct and acquitted, tzadak, for those who are right, straightforward and honest, vindicated and cleared of all charges, and for those whose thinking and inclinations, thoughts and emotions, judgment and feelings, leboth wakilyahav, hearts as the seat of judgment and kidneys, as the seat of emotions, have been examined, assessed, tested and found genuine and true, bakon, have been proven valid using evidence and reason, Qowl participle, God who vindicates those who are right, Elohim tzaddik, mighty one who acquits the correct. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 7 verse 9. This is the two-step approach to salvation which applies to us individually and to the redemption of Yisrael. The consequence of religion, and in particular, the deadly, destructive, and duplicitous legacies of Paul, Akiba, Muhammad, and Marx, must be stopped first and then eliminated. Once that is done, and there is no more Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or libertards, then the 1,000-year celebration of Sukkah on earth can commence. And as for Dowd, he has grown impatient. He wants Judaism and Christianity gone now, along with Islam and progressives. Collectively, they are destroying his people and precluding their salvation. Dowd has also affirmed that those swept up in the excitement of his return, all at the last possible minute, will be tested for authenticity. Their hearts and minds, thinking and motivations will be assessed to determine if they are being genuine. Time and time again we find YAHOWAH's prophets revealing that we come to know him by being observant, by probing the evidence he has provided, by being rational and executing good judgment, and by recognizing that God is right. My defense and protection, Megan Eni, my protective shield and surrounding fortification, my all-around covering, even the gift of my protection, are before God, Elohim, is from the Almighty, who delivers, liberates, and saves, removing from harm's way, Moshe, who rescues and removes, the right-minded who correctly execute good judgment, Yasher the straightforward and upright, on the level, thinking properly and motivated appropriately. Mizmor/lyrics to sing /Psalm 7 verse 10. This will come as an unpleasant surprise to Roman Catholics who have been deceived by conniving men, who have duped the faithful into believing that their church will determine their fate. This will likewise come as an unwelcome realization to rabbinical Jews who act as if their religion will make them righteous. And of course, anything and everything YAHOWAH says stupefies Muslims. Anyone sufficiently ignorant to believe that Muhammad, a pedophile, rapist, thief, and terrorist, was a prophet, and that his Quran, which is the dumbest book ever written, was inspired by God, deserves their fate. But then again, if there were a religious test for stupidity, how dumb does one have to be to put their fate in a man who, by choosing a false messiah, caused his people to be crucified and enslaved in countless numbers, his land renamed, initiating the diaspora? And yet, Akiba is the father of rabbinic Judaism. And don't get me started on the idiocy of Paul's proposition, that God inspired a man to contradict him, nullify his Torah, and replace his son with a myth. May I suggest that we all listen to Dowd instead? This is what he recognized by studying the Torah. God, Elohim, encourages judging and defending, adjudicating and deciding, Shabat, sentencing and vindicating, executing justice while exercising good judgment, Qowl participle, correctly, tzaddik, accurately and appropriately, fairly and properly vindicating or sentencing by being just. Therefore, God, angrily denounces, expressing his extreme indignation, and is furious. Zam literally demonstrates his hostility and genuinely communicates his resentment, annoyance, and outrage, Qowl participle, throughout time, kol yaum, every day and all day. Mizmor/lyrics to sing /Psalm 7 verse 11. Based on what mankind has done and said, God is going to denounce many more than he is going to commend. After all, it's Yahowah's universe, and thus, it's his decision what he wants to do with it. It's God's home, and he gets to decide who lives in it with him. The Torah is Yahowah's too, making it the constitution his witnesses will use when executing judgment. That should be alarming for most because there is no accommodation for faith. Worse, every religious, political, patriotic, militaristic, multicultural, and conspiratorial individual will find that they have grieved and frustrated the Almighty, in joining his extreme indignation. Given everything we need to find Yahuwah, to know and respect God, to live forever with our Heavenly Father, almost everyone has chosen religion over relationship, dependence upon government over reliance on him, and belief over knowing. Mankind has given God a lot to hate and has done so for a very long time. Considering all Father and Son have done to make our lives joyous and forever productive and rewarding, it is tragic that so many have made God's existence so miserable. Of the 8 billion people on the planet, less than 1,000 know and love him while the rest either ignore the source of their existence or worship a false god in his stead. Since God will be using his words to end life, just as he used them to conceive it, the following list of implements is figurative, symbolically painting word pictures to help us understand his approach toward the religious and political, the patriotic and militaristic, the conspiratorial and anti-Semitic. If, there is no change, lo, shub, there is no return to the relationship, he will forge and sharpen, ladish, he will hammer into shape, his chisel and sword, cherubhu, his cutting tools. His bow, keshehu, symbols of his power and influence, he has bent, derak, he has set out and taken aim, Qowl perfect. He is ready for this, wakun high, he is prepared and will use it, peel imperfect. Mizmor/lyrics to sing /Psalm 7 verse 12. If Yah meant to say that his cherub, chisel, is being forged, then the criterion judging those who have opposed him will be the 10 statements he carved in stone. If Yah meant to say that his cherub, cutting tools, are being prepared, then the stage is set for the religious to be eternally separated. And if God was suggesting that his cherub, sword, was being sharpened, then the lives of his adversaries will be cut short. If God intended to have Keshe describe a bow, it, derak, will be taken out and bent, then he will take aim at all those who are hostile to his people in place. If his Keshe, rainbow, is derak, being shaped such that the terms of the covenant are being brought into play, only those who have accepted its conditions will be spared. And should Yah have used Keshe to describe gathering sticks and straw, those who are hostile to him will be, derak, trampled down, upon his return. There is a popular myth among religious Christians and Jews that either Jesus or a nameless Messiah is coming to save them. But none of that is true. Daud fulfilled his purpose. Yahuwah is returning with him, and they will be doing a lot more destroying than saving. Moreover, Christians and religious Jews will be among the first to experience his animosity because they have all negatively influenced God's people. A time is quickly approaching when God's patience will have ended. He is going to restore the earth to the conditions he intended such that they reflect Eden. And this means that the religious will be removed with great prejudice. Those who have been indoctrinated to believe that their God is going to save them will be the first to go. He has prepared for himself, wallahu kun, he has fashioned and formed, developed and established, secured and proven, decided upon and has at the ready, hyphal perfect, weapons for the plague and implements of death, kali moth, equipment for the pestilence and vessels to contain the disease. His divisive missiles, chetsu, his arrows and flying weapons which are used to cut off and separate, perform, pa'al, carry out the mission, Qowl imperfect, by kindling a blazing fire, ladalik, by hotly pursuing with fire and incinerating. Mizmor/lyrics to sing /Psalm 7 verse 13. This poetic language demonstrates that God is going to rid his world of all traces of man's religious and political rubbish. The process will be by incineration, just as we burn trash to rid ourselves of its stench and prevent further contamination. This is consistent with the prophecy we considered earlier in Dabram 29. It may also be a justifiable response to the Holocaust. We have come to the place where there is no longer any question as to the identity of God's most hated enemy. This Benjamite is Shaul, whom Christians know as the Apostle Paul. He not only wrote 14 New Testament books, Galatians, 1 and 2 Corinthians, 1 and 2 Thessalonians, Romans, Ephesians, Colossians, Philippians, Hebrews, Philemon, Titus, and 1 and 2 Timothy, he is the subject of Acts and indoctrinated Luke, Mark, and later, Matthew, such that he became the father of the world's most popular religion. While I suspect that many of you reading the first volume of Coming Home have read the 5 volumes of Twistianity, if you are not among them, may I suggest that you turn to it now. We have reached a cathartic moment, a place of departure from which there is no return. We are going to expose and condemn the means that son of wickedness, Shaul Paul, used to annul the antidote to his plague of death. We will systematically uncover what Paul had to say and write about Daud and compare that to what Yahuwah revealed through his prophets, focusing upon what may be the most important of all Mizmor, the 89th. Pay attention, Hina, behold, look now and notice, he impoverishes through that which is extraordinarily evil, and he binds and controls by demanding a deceitful religious pledge, Chabal, on, using false testimony in the gestation of that which is appalling and ruinous, he, the Benjamite, destructively in debts, leading to broken promises and unfavorable circumstances because what he enthusiastically promotes is completely untrue and religiously idolatrous, Peel imperfect third person. Masculine singular, the object suffers the effect of what this one man has conceived with ongoing consequences. He has conceived and given birth to, Hara, during his finite time, he gestates and has produced, Qowl perfect consecutive third-person masculine singular, that which results in oppression and misery, Amal, that which is unpleasant and wearisome, leading to subjugation, that which is laborious and financially restrictive, requiring grievous toil with no reward. He became the father of, Yalad, he fathered and gave birth to, Qowl, actually and literally, perfect, for a finite period of time, third-person masculine singular pertaining to this one man, deceptions and lies, sheker, a faith which is mistaken, misleading, and utterly false, and beliefs based upon vain futility and betrayal which have no value, use, merit, or reason for existing because he was a complete fraud. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 7 verse 14. From the beginning, every reference to this villain remains third-person masculine singular. Therefore, each additional statement continues to expose and condemn, warning the world about an exceptionally infamous and evil Benjamite. Of those, there is but one who fathered a religion, Shaul Paul. This Benjamite adopted the Roman name, Paulos, and insidiously conceived the Christian religion on false pretenses. His primary ploy was to defraud Dowd, creating the pretense of credibility for the myth of Jesus Christ. In the process, he not only condemned billions of Gentiles, but he also turned the world against Jews. And let's not forget, Paul all but destroyed Yahowah's relationship with his people the past 2,000 years. He is the plague of death and the father of lies. Paul abandoned, denounced, and annulled Yahowah's Torah, misappropriating its guidance as laws that were said to condemn rather than liberate. He negated Yahowah's covenant, errantly claiming that it enslaved. He even demeaned its conditions, stating that by agreeing to them a person could not be saved. Then, adding an extra pinch of evil, he demeaned and demonized Yahowah's chosen people. He replaced everything Yahowah advocated and loved with, but I, Paul, say. But worst of all, he annulled everything Dowd said and did, deceitfully transferring his acclaim to his fictional account of the Lord Jesus Christ. This transfer became the basis of replacement theology and lies at the heart of the religion's most debilitating and deadly deception. In the Pauline diatribe, it's not so much that the Lord Jesus Christ replaced Yahowah, it's that he replaces Yahowah as Messiah, God's Son, and the Pesach Il, Dowd. The resulting fictionalized Jesus would have but one apostle, Shaul, now Paul. He would require unquestioned submission to himself and to Rome. He would not tolerate a rival or different gospel to his own. The man struck blind and lame by the light and voice he claimed he saw and heard on the road to Damascus would take the unsuspecting back into the crucibles of human oppression by way of Babylon. According to Paul, Dowd's contribution to humankind would be reduced to a single sperm. And Dowd's service as the Passover lamb, of being the Messiah and King, was all negated and misappropriated in the most devious way, by misquoting God. If you believe that there is another, somehow unknown, Roman Benjamite, whose written and oral testimony earned this universal condemnation by God and his Son, you'd still have to deal with the fact that everything Paul wrote is in direct conflict with what God revealed, making one of the two a liar. And should you believe that the liar was God, not Paul, then you deserve your fate. While Shaul is destined to spend eternity in Sheol, and while I have no pity for the religious, political, and militaristic leaders he will take with him, my heart breaks for all they deceived. And yet, as we shall soon see, the ploy Paul used to deceive Christians is so readily obvious, it's becoming difficult to remain compassionate toward those who don't care enough about their own souls to invest the time needed to learn the truth. Even here, should you not yet know enough to conclude that Dowd is assailing Paul, ask yourself, why would God inspire Dowd to write a psalm against an unknown and unknowable enemy, and include his own condemnation in the process? What's the point, if not to expose mankind's deadliest and most anti-Semitic concoction? Furthermore, how could Yahowah be the merciful and compassionate God Dowd claims him to be if he didn't warn his people about the enormous threat Shaul Paul would pose to their souls and well-being? After all, no other individual in all of human history has caused more harm to be perpetrated against the chosen people than the wannabe Apostle Paul. Speaking of the Roman Benjamite who sought to annul Yahowah's Torah and to superimpose himself over God's Zeroah, Mos and Dowd, with, but I, Paul, say. He has dug, Kara, he has hewn out and has excavated through a spurious plot, Qowl perfect, third-person masculine singular, a prison, bore, a dungeon and pit, seeking to confuse and discredit through it, Chapar who, looking to dishonor and confound with it, desiring to disgrace and bewilder, Qowl imperfect third-person masculine singular. So, it's into, YBA, the slime pit of corruption and decay, Shakath, the dungeon or putrid decay, he has fashioned and devised, Pa'al, he has plotted and planned, made and prepared, Qowl imperfect, that he will fall as he is cast down, Napal, he will descend, falling prostrate, going to a lower dimension, Qowl imperfect. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 7 verse 15. Let's never forget that Paul prevailed because he claimed Roman citizenship and turned both Romans and Greeks against Jews with devastating effects. Had he not done so, righteous Jews would have killed him after he brought uncircumcised Goyim into the temple as if it were his to desecrate. Paul's epistle on behalf of these same Romans not only establishes Pauline doctrine, and thus the Christian religion within it, but after discrediting Dowd, Paul claims that the beast's government was ordained by his God and was a force for good, to which everyone must submit. Let's never forget that imperial Rome, of which Paul claimed allegiance, was the most savage beast to evolve out of Babylon and that its church, which Paul conceived, was presented as the final monster, one that would tread upon, and thus oppress and subjugate, the entire world. For over 1,000 years, the Roman Catholic, meaning universal, church lorded over, suppressed, and abused the masses, all while forcing Jews to live without rights or dignity in ghettos. This is the pit that Paul has dug for himself, the prison he fashioned to confuse Goyim and discredit Yahowah and Yehudim, God's Torah and covenant. Having conceived the institution that would force the chosen people into slime pits of corruption and decay while torturing those who would speak out against the church's arrogance and the endorsement of heinous crimes in its dungeons with hideous implements, it's time for retribution and accountability. That is the message of Mizmor 7:15. Let there be no doubt, Paul was fully aware that he was in league with Satan and in opposition to God, a conclusion which is irrefutable because he wrote it with his own hand. And God is going to hold him accountable. Shaul is destined to Sheol, and I hope to be one of many condemning him, along with his accomplices, Luke, Timothy, Peter, and Mark. Throughout his putrid letters, this Roman Benjamite constantly bellyached about all of his trials and tribulations, the toilsome misery he endured to establish his gospel. He went so far as to imagine things which never occurred, including that his personal suffering somehow completed the job his Jesus Christ failed to accomplish. Therefore, Yahuwah inspired Dowd to write. His toilsome misery, Amalhu, his wearisome, unproductive, and unfulfilling experience, his troublesome effort to gain notoriety, will be turned back, Shub, will return to, Qowl imperfect third-person masculine singular, unto his head because he's the source and beginning of such things, Baroshu, his own head as the start of this. And, Wa, upon, Al, the crown of his head, Kadkadhu, his scalp, skull, that which is wrong and destructive about him, Hamashu, his violent injustice, errant beliefs, and oppressive nature, along with his cruel demeanor and unrighteous nature, will be brought down upon him, Yared, will descend upon him. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 7 verse 16. It all began with Paul's conversion experience on the road to Damascus. Satan struck him blind and lame. He was demon-possessed, which became the source of his inspiration, the reason why everything he wrote was destructive and wrong. And along with Satan, Shaul will descend into Sheol. The most nefarious and infamous man in human history, its most errant and destructive, the one who brought more toilsome misery upon Jews than anyone else, will be brought down, and his religion along with him. As a result of fathering Christianity, Shaul Paul will wear the crown of destruction that Yisraelites foolishly placed upon the head of King Shaul. For having ripped the rightful crown off of Dowd's head, Paul will wear the crown of errant beliefs. If I were not so repulsed by his stench, I would ask to put it there. Paul is the epitome of evil. Dowd is the exemplar of virtue. This is my choice too, and I hope yours. I will express my understanding, publicly thanking, while acknowledging the attributes of Yada. I want to extol the virtues, admitting to the influence, showing my appreciation for, from Yada, to reveal and know, to acknowledge and understand, to be familiar with and respect, Hyphal imperfect Jussive, Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, in a manner which is accurate and correct. Regarding him, Kot Sadakhu, appropriately considering his righteousness, according to that which is right, honest and trustworthy, vindicating and acquitting, beneficial and just of him. I will choose to sing, Wazammer, I will put lyrics to melody, and accompanied by musical instruments, I will continuously and harmoniously verbalize my desire, Peel cohortative imperfect, to the name, Shem, to the personal and proper designation, of Yahowah, the Most High, Elion, who exists above and beyond everything, awe-inspiring and splendorous, reigning supreme, from Allah, to raise and lift up. Mizmor/lyrics to sing Psalm 7 verse 17. Theirs is the greatest love story ever told, the most beautiful song ever sung. Dowd was right about Yahuwah, and he loved God's name. He was Yahuwah's most inspired, brilliant, and passionate witness. And he became our Savior. It is the reason Yahuwah loved him, the reason he became his beloved son. It was for this reason that Dowd was anointed as Yahuwah's Messiah and chosen to be his people's shepherd and king. This is what made Dowd the branch and a prophet and qualified him to serve as the Zeroath sacrificial lamb. It is the reason he earned the right to judge the world. Let's review this uniquely instructive song about Yahuwah's devotion to his son and antipathy toward his most ardent foe. Erring and going astray, the consequence of being misled, Shigayan. By Dowd, who, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, sang, Seir, to, Yahowah, against, Al, the words and accounts, Dabri, of the lowly cauldron, Cush, of the Benjamite, Binyamini. Mizmor 7, title and dedication. Yahuwah, my God, Elohim Eni, in you, Ada, I find a trusted shelter and a safe place, Chasa. You have decided to deliver me and save through me, Yasha Eni. Your will is to defend me and to deliver salvation through me, snatching me away, Natsal Eni, from all, Min Qowl, my pretentious pursuers, especially the boisterous who are verbally contentious against me, frenzied and senseless in their defiant and confusing schemes, Radaf Eni. Mizmor 7:1. Or otherwise, Pen, in the manner of, Ka, a fiercely destructive being, a vicious beast in search of prey, area, he would rip apart and ravage in an appalling manner, Teref, my soul, Nipesh Eni, snatching it away and shredding it, stripping it of any meaning, Parak, depriving it of its ability to save, Ein Natsal. Mizmor 7:2. Yahuwah, my God, Elohi, what have I done to deserve this, Asazoth? How is there, I'm Yesh, anything wrong, dishonest, or disingenuous, all, on my hand, Kof Eni. Mizmor 7:3. Under what circumstance, after what I've rendered, do I deserve the chastisement, criticism, and castigation, Gamal, of a malignant and miserable attack by an adversarial and contemptible countryman who is deliberately hurtful and injurious, as recompense for me having completely fulfilled the means to reconciliation, Shalem Eni. Have I inappropriately, without justification or reasonable cause, taken something away, withdrawing favor to plunder the relationship, Waraikum Shalats, from this adversary trying to limit and constrain me, Serer Eni? Mizmor 7:4. This hostile opponent and antagonist, this adversarial foe, Oyeb, has chosen to systematically pursue and persecute, denigrating, Radaf, my soul, Nipesh Eni. Further, he has chosen to confrontationally overshadow, Nazag, and consistently tread upon, Waramas, my lives, Chaim Eni, for the land, Lahak Eretz. Therefore, Wah, my overall relevance and reward, my significance and status, my respect and reputation, Kabod any, he wants to dwell and remain, always placed, Shakan, within the dust, dirt, and debris, Laha, afar. Let's pause now and contemplate what has been brought before us, Selah. Mizmor 7:5. Yahowah, Yahowah, you and I both want to take a stand, having jointly decided to rise up in opposition, Kyum, in your righteous indignation, tremendous resentment, and resolute anger, Baf any. You have chosen to rise up, Nasa, against, the insolent and arrogant outbursts, Ibra, of the troublesome rival trying to limit and constrain me, Sarah any. You and I both want to be alert and aroused, ready for action, eager to expose the false testimony, Wah, toward me, any. You have explained and appointed, judgment along with the means to make informed and rational decisions regarding the way to resolve disputes, Mishpat. Mizmor 7:6. Let the people formerly of distinct political and religious entities, Laomim, and the community of the witness, Ada, choose to surround you, turning to you of their own volition, electing to change such that they can gather around you, Sabab, Ada. And as a result of this, Al-Hai, you and I concur, wanting you to return and restore, Shub, the approach to the heights of heaven, Lahamarom. Mizmor 7:7. Yahowah, decides and can choose to contend with or defend, judge or guide, dine, the people and family, Am. Yahowah, you have chosen to execute justice, to lead, govern, and judge, even vindicate, through me, Shapat any, in accordance with, me being right, honest, and acquitting, Sadak any, and consistent with, my integrity and character resulting in my innocence, Taum any al any. Mizmor 7:8. Please, I beseech you, heightening the urgency and intensity of this request, the contemptible countryman who is harmful and troubling, invalid and appalling, guilty of being incorrect and condemnable, Rasha, he must be stopped and cease to exist, Gammer. And then, you can establish that which is enduring, Kun, for those who are correct and acquitted, Sadak, and for those whose thinking and inclinations, thoughts and emotions, judgment and feelings, Leboth Wakilyahoth, have been examined, assessed, tested and found genuine and true, Bakon, God who vindicates those who are right, Elohim Tzadik. Mizmor 7:9. My defense and protection, Megan any, are before God, Elohim, who delivers, liberates, and saves, removing from harm's way, Moshiach, the right-minded who correctly execute good judgment, Yasher Leb. Mizmor 7:10. God, Elohim, encourages judging and defending, adjudicating and deciding, Shapat, correctly, and being fair and just, Tzadik. Therefore, God, angrily denounces, expressing his extreme indignation, and is furious, Zam, throughout time, Kol Yaum. Mizmor 7:11. If there is no change, lo, Shub, he will forge and sharpen, Ladish, his chisel and sword, Cherubhu. His bow, Keshehu, he has bent, Derak. He is ready for this, Wakun Hai. Mizmor 7:12. He has prepared for himself, Walahu Kun, weapons for the plague and implements of death, Kali Moth. His divisive missiles, Chetsu, perform, Pa'al, by kindling a blazing fire, La Dalek. Mizmor 7:13. Pay attention, Haina, he impoverishes through that which is extraordinarily evil, and he binds and controls by demanding a deceitful religious pledge, Chabal, on. He has conceived and given birth to, Hara, that which results in oppression and misery, Amal. He became the father of, Yalad, deceptions and lies, Sheker. Mizmor 7:14. He has dug, Kara, a prison, Bor, seeking to confuse and discredit through it, Chaparhu. So, it's into, Ba, the slime pit of corruption and decay, Shakath, he has fashioned and devised, Pile, that he will fall as he is cast down, Naphal. Mizmor 7:15. His toilsome misery to gain notoriety, Amalhu, will be turned back, Shub, unto his head because he's the source and beginning of such things, Baroshu. And, upon, the crown of his head, Kadkadhu, his scalp, skull, that which is wrong and destructive about him, Hamashu, will be brought down upon him, Yered. Mizmor 7:16. I will express my understanding, publicly thanking, while acknowledging the attributes of Yada, Yahowah, in a manner which is accurate and correct regarding him, Kat Sadakhu. I will choose to sing, Wazamer, to the name, Shem, of Yahowah, the Most High, Elion. Mizmor/lyrics to sing/Psalm 7 verse 17. Yod Hey Wahey.